I'll try that again. Good evening. Firstly, can I turn to Vic, ask for apologies for absences?
Thank you, Chairman. We have no apologies, but Councillor Bennett has just sent a message through. He may be a little late due to traffic issues.
Thank you. Do we have any members here that have got any declarations of interest to declare, either disclosable pecuniary or disclosable interests, or for anything on the agenda this evening? Is that a no? Thank you. Agenda item 3, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting, which was held on the 24th of September. Could I have a proposer for those minutes? Thank you, Dean. And can I have a seconder? Thank you, Mark. And we'll just show of hands for everybody that approves those minutes. Thank you. So, Chairman's announcements. Given we're likely to have a longer meeting than usual this evening, I'd rather give over time for discussion. I don't want to cover too much in terms of my announcements. I just want to start, though, by thanking all of those who came to my civic service back in October. It was a very well-attended event with both our local church and the Bell full of local residents who contribute to our community. Plenty of you great councillors came along from all parties and independents, and a lot of newfound friends from other districts. For other people that have been chairs in the past, you'll realise you get to meet lots of other people that are chairs in other districts as well. So it's good to have lots of those come to Malvern as well and celebrate with me. Thank you to Nikki Stevens, who worked very hard to help out and to help put these events on, and to the team at Christchurch in Lower Broadheath and to the Bell in Lower Broadheath. I, as a chair, has continued to represent the district, attending a lot of events, and even more to come as we head towards Christmas. I've been lucky enough to be able to make most that I've been invited to. Among many of these have included events around Remembrance Sunday and the very recent Three Kings Parade in Stourport. It's important for a councillor for a rural ward in the north of the district that my civic service was a celebration of the hard-working people in our community who make the community. My heart goes out to all those residents and businesses in Tenbury who've recently been affected by the flooding this weekend. Just prior to this meeting, I went back to my first meeting as chair, which wasn't that long ago. I want to remind myself that my role is to ensure that the council meeting is a forum for the debate of matters of concern to the local community and the place at which members are able to hold the leader, members of the executive committee and other committee chairs to account, and to work in a way that ensures that the authority's aims, objectives and priorities are met. I said at the time, I want to see in the coming year that we're a proactive council actively achieving things for our residents, being progressive and improving their lives. Whatever happens this evening, I hope that we can still see through these goals. I don't think any member of the public wants to see council where they pay their council tax not driving things forward, not doing the best for them, and not ensuring that discussion is kept to what can be done. Playing the ball in debate and discussion, not the man or woman. We're here to deliver, and throughout this evening, I hope that's what we bear in mind. I have chaired four full council meetings. Outside of leaders' questions and public participation, there has been 6 items discussed as agenda points across 4 full council meetings. Just 6 items. One of those was due to a change in the balance of the council, so only 5 were moving things forward for residents, and 1 was a Malvern Hills Trust debate. Now I understand that not all items have come to council, and I know that Councillor Wells brought forward 2 very important pieces of work for the governance CPG last meeting, but I do think our residents would like us to be covering more than the average 1.25 agenda items per full council. Thanks to that work from Councillor Wells, and following whatever happens this evening, hopefully we can see full agendas returned back to council meetings. As I promised, I will keep it short, but before we get into this evening, I want to remind everyone to keep things civil in debate. Do not talk until I've called out your name, and as you'd expect, I will give everyone time to talk within reason. Within any debate, I'll decide when we move on, and I think any topic has had ample discussion, and I want to make sure that we do have ample discussion around topics. And with that, I just want to pull one of the agenda items slightly forward. We've got 2 notices of motion at the end of the agenda. Because of the format of the rest of the meeting, it seems sensible that we move one of them forward. And I'd like to invite Councillor Owenson to move his notice of motion.
Thank you. It's a very simple motion. I believe that the Deputy Leader does not have the support of the majority of councillors on this council, and I propose that she steps down, therefore the council has no confidence in her as deputy leader, and we elect a new deputy leader straight away.
Chair, I wish to second the nomination. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. What can I say about Natalie? Because I think somebody should speak in her defence. And what could you say about her? A self-serving, two-faced deceiver of our residents, just out for herself, councillor, are not the sort of things that you would ever hear about Councillor McVeigh. I couldn't believe anybody would ever say something like that. Nor could one call her a coward, hiding away her political allegiance from her residents. At the County Council, she stands as a Green. At this District Council, she also wears the green rosette. Like Councillor Owenson, she and he both openly stand honestly for their respective parties. With Councillor McVeigh, you know what you're going to get. And if she were to ever move parties, personally, I could forgive her just one political move. People are allowed to change their views. But with her, there would be no hiding in the darkness, no hiding in the shadows, no pretense. Unlike others in the wider political world, far beyond this county, she would never seek to do any backroom dodgy deals, just to boost her ego, advancement or bank balance. She's not that sort of person. Natalie has always put our residents first, not caring about having a portfolio or power for the sake of power. She has worked tirelessly to eradicate homelessness in our district. Nobody could dispute that. As Deputy Leader, Natalie has shone forth the honourable attributes of loyalty, decency, common sense, and she has truly served her community. I have confidence in Councillor McVeigh, and so should you. Tonight, being decent, honest, brave, with true integrity should be enough, but I fear she will see shame in the eyes of some tonight who will sell their souls for a handful of silver and political advancement. I urge you to do the right thing by our residents, for our residents, and retain Natalie as your Deputy Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've been a councillor for quite some time now. I've been in opposition, I've been in administration, I've been back in opposition. I think I've held pretty much every position, and I've worked with Natalie for a long time. I think if I'm just being honest tonight, this isn't about Natalie, because Natalie's turned up to every meeting. She's worked incredibly hard. She's attended national conferences. She's passionate about what she does. There's no one thing you can say Natalie doesn't have the respect of people here. What is it you're saying? We want Natalie gone. You only want Natalie gone because you want to form your own administration, and it doesn't suit you to have Natalie in place as deputy. But actually you could leave Natalie in place as deputy and still run this council, because that would then show that you truly do want to work with everyone, and she could continue as deputy whilst you have your portfolios. It is simply a move to clear the way so you can have what you want, and Jeremy can stand in as deputy leader. And I think pretending anything else is disrespectful to Natalie, and it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. David?
Thank you very much. And I do concur with the comments that have been made, but I'm going to answer the question that yourself have asked, and that is, I still believe that the motion that's been put forward, which isn't actually on here, to elect a deputy leader should come immediately after item 6.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Council. Chairman, in your introductory remarks this evening, you said something I was about to say, but I'm going to repeat it. You said that we should not play the man, but the ball. Well, isn't that ironic? The very next item on the agenda is doing just what you asked us not to do. Putting a vote of no confidence in one of our colleagues. If that's not playing the man, I don't know, or in this case the woman, I don't know what is, frankly. Chairman, I've been on this council far too long, 30 years. In fact, I was here when New Malvern Hills was established in 1997, and I do not recall a single occasion during those 30 years where members of this council have felt the need to propose a vote of no confidence in a colleague. Just let that sink in. Not once. So why are we here today debating this motion? Let's examine the facts, shall we? I checked this afternoon. Natalie's attendance record is 100%. Unlike the proposer of the motion, who rather falls behind that high threshold. Natalie has been an exemplary deputy leader. In fact, she's been far too good. She has at times ensured that I ask myself questions about how well this post can be conducted, and Natalie has done her job when stepping into my shoes brilliantly. She is well regarded on the LGA circuit and is a peer mentor. What could it possibly be, then, that creates a circumstance where members of this council feel they have to impose a vote of no confidence in a colleague? And actually, where would the harm be, as Sarah says, of continuing with Natalie as deputy leader of this council? The Conservative administration, that it is, because they have the majority of the service areas now with 3 portfolios, they won't be impacted by this. The lesser group, the DIG group, will retain their 2. The leader of the Liberal Democrat group will still retain his position on overview scrutiny. And all the chairs and vice chairs that are about to change this evening will still change this evening. But you know, it would be a masterly stroke, Councillor Gallagher. A masterly stroke indeed, if you were to embrace this thought that I'm about to put to you. The Gaia group could hardly criticise the administration if their leader were the deputy leader of council. What a masterly stroke that would be, politically. So where I ask the mover and the seconder to withdraw this pernicious, completely outrageous motion, and let's get on with some business about serving the people in Malvern Hills.
Thank you, Tom. Jules?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I concur with what Tom said and with what Sarah said. And I think Natalie should be retained as deputy leader. I've gone through all sorts of emotions with this, and in fact it's made me feel quite ill. I've gone through anger, disbelief, and I'm now just sad. And I'm sad because this treatment of fellow councillors should not be occurring. On what grounds can a vote of no confidence be justified? Natalie, a hard-working and well-respected councillor who has worked tirelessly to help those who are in poverty or struggling to pay for their fuel or to feed their children, as well as all her work in supporting veterans. This action tonight is all in pursuit of power. Indeed, what depths have we sunk to when a councillor can accuse Natalie on a Facebook page of proceeding to force vegan food on the poor? What message does that send to our residents? I suspect many in this room will be in disbelief at that. I've served food at breakfast clubs with Natalie, and I can assure you that there is no force feeding. And believe it or not, even scrambled eggs and sausages were on offer. People can come along and share food for free or make a donation. Good quality, healthy and nutritious food in a warm and safe environment where they can meet other people. That's what serving the residents of Malvern Hills District Council is about. And in trying to bully Natalie to stand down as deputy leader, the same councillor sent an email to Natalie trying to persuade her to stand down rather than to face this vote of no confidence, and then went on to say, I really don't want to paint the Trump picture with you clinging on, come what may. What level is that? I think it's disgusting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jules. Dean?
Can I move that the motion now be moved?
Natalie, I'll come back to you, that's fine.
You want me to speak now? I think I deserve a right of reply. First of all, what can I say but thank you to members of the public, friends and family who are here tonight to witness this historic moment for Malvern Hills District Council, and to colleagues who've spoken out in support of me. Some people in the opposite camp were saying very similar things in support of my appointment as Deputy Leader for a third time only a few months ago. Never before, as Tom said, has a vote of no confidence been brought to Council, all the more remarkable because this vote has no legitimate basis. Quite simply, we are discussing this tonight because I will not give in to bullies and I will not be a scapegoat. The only way that this cobbled together calamitous coalition can appoint themselves to administration is to force me out, despite the fact that I have an excellent track record as Deputy Leader. I've chaired meetings fairly and professionally during the last few years, to the extent that the Leader of the Opposition and others have personally congratulated me after the meetings. I've put my heart and soul into the role and my role as portfolio holder for housing and poverty alleviation. No one can question my commitment or integrity. It's a shame that certain individuals have not learnt from history, but I believe this council is bigger and better than a few selfish, disingenuous councillors intent on furthering their own political careers at the cost of residents and at the same time risking reputational damage to this council. Those individuals might take time to reacquaint themselves with the Nolan principles by which we are bound to operate under. Only 6 months ago, people who now supposedly have no confidence in me said, "She's willing to help and advise, obsessively hard-working, keen to sort out problems, excellent and effervescent." I'm now being compared to Donald Trump, as George just said, and being accused of force-feeding poor people vegan food. They're not my words. How ironic that councillors who were calling for a particular Labour, or should I say independent councillor, it's very confusing, to be sacked less than 6 months ago are now putting their weight behind her. Political parties with manifestos and many axes to grind are apparently putting all of that aside. Let's mention tuition fees, taxation and winter fuel cuts for starters. I and my authentic principal colleagues are collateral damage. Our residents deserve representation that is honest, hard-working and consistent, not chaos, confusion and at times pure comedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Jeremy, can I come back to you to sum up? Okay, fine, go to vote. Okay, so we're going to take a vote for everybody in favour.
Name vote. As we will all tonight.
Okay, fine vote.
All those who are calling for a name vote.
So members, we're taking a named vote. I will call your name, and if you can indicate whether you're voting for or against or abstaining with regards to the notice of motion put forward for the vote of no confidence in the Deputy Leader. Councillor Allen.
Against this shameful motion.
Councillor Bennett. Councillor Bruton.
Against.
Councillor Chan.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Pam come in.
For.
Councillor Paul come in.
For.
Councillor Driscoll.
Against.
Councillor Gallagher.
For.
Councillor Godwin.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Barbara Jones-Williams.
For.
Councillor McVeigh.
Against.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Michael.
For.
Councillor Mills.
For.
Councillor Nielsen.
For.
Councillor Owenson.
For.
Councillor Palmer.
For.
Councillor Rain.
Against.
Councillor Rouse.
Against.
Councillor Fran Victory. Councillor Malcolm Victory. Councillor Walton.
For.
Councillor Watkins. Councillor Kathy Wells. Councillor Tom Wells.
Against.
Councillor Watley.
Against.
Councillor Wild. Councillor Wilmot.
For.
Councillor Wood.
Against.
Chair, that vote is carried 17 for and 14 against.
Thank you, Misha. That turns me to ask for nominations for Deputy Leader of the Council. Do we have any proposers or people? John?
Yeah, I'd like to propose Jeremy Owenson for Deputy Leader of Malvern Hills District Council. He's someone I've always got on with. When the recent administration fractured, which is what actually has happened, he contacted me and we discussed our ambitions for Malvern Hills and our residents. So by the mere fact that he reached out to me to share whatever concerns he had, I echoed those. I was impressed by him having done that. So we discussed what was going on and what was going wrong and how we should solve it. And I could see that we were thinking along the same lines. We were on the same page, as it were. I want this administration to be collegiate, and I think Jeremy echoes that vision. And I think as deputy leader, he would have a great role to play, and he is the right person to be deputy leader. So I look forward to Jeremy operating in that position and working along with the Democratic Independents and Conservatives together to actually provide a better council.
Thank you, John. Do we have a seconder to that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I just wish to say a few words in support of seconding the nomination. Councillor Owenson has served on this authority for over a decade and works very hard for his residents in Upton and beyond on his various roles that he fulfils. And many of you have known him longer than I, because I've only been on this authority for 18 months. But from what I've heard and from certainly what I've seen, Jeremy is known for focusing our minds on what matters most to our residents, and not necessarily the big subjects, but the smaller ones and the less glam ones. I'm told that he helped lead on some of the work around the Loo Review and the transformation of public conveniences. So the point of that is that it is those issues that matter to our residents day to day, and we've talked about that in this chamber this evening. Jeremy is a great campaigner, and he does listen and he responds to the concerns of residents and councillors to make things happen. And he's previously served as cabinet for communities, so he does know the ropes. He knows who's who. He knows how to get stuck in straight away, delivering on priorities. And above all, he's passionate about people and about Malvern. As I've said, personally, I've only known Jeremy for about 18 months, but I do have experience of Jeremy as my group leader. He's very supportive in encouraging people to be their best. And I do believe that he does have the skills, qualities and the ambition mentioned by Councillor Gallagher to deliver. But most important, as has been mentioned, is that willingness to collaborate and encourage us to do things together. We may not always agree on the solution, but we do all have common ground. We all serve our residents, and I am confident, and I guess there'll be some sceptics will have to see it to believe it, but I do think he can help us focus our minds on what matters, and therefore I don't have any hesitation in supporting him to be our deputy leader.
Thank you, Jane. Do you have another nomination? Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Watley this evening. He and I have worked together now for quite a few years. Before he worked here, he was part of this council. He was part of Suckley Council. And I think the thing about Councillor Watley, as you'll all know, is he's very measured. He's not like me. I get quite fiery and feisty. I'll, start a fight in an empty room. But Councillor Watley can work with everyone. He can bring a council together. He has the skills to bring everyone together. And it's very well saying on the other side of the room, we're talking and we're going to work together. But actually what we need now is somebody who can bring everyone together. And we should be looking at a proper coalition where actually we don't need to have so many portfolios divvied up between everyone. We could do what some councils are doing and really share the power here of what's going on. Admittedly, there is some people on the other side of the room who I know I can't work with. And that's how it is. We're not all going to get on. But I believe Councillor Watley is somebody who can actually bring people together, who actually has the skills that are required to be leader of this council at the moment, because he knows all about the finances, he knows what he's doing, he's been integral in delivering a lot of actual projects and finishing Jeremy's loo review, which I remember from years ago, but then it didn't actually happen because the loos just stayed as they were, and Councillor Wally has now seen through that we do have a lot of new shiny loos. So sorry to end there, Councillor Watley, on the loos, but I really do believe he is someone who could bring this council back together, because it is very fractured at the moment.
Thank you, Sarah. And this is obviously a nomination for Deputy Leader of the Council. Do you have a seconder, Natalie?
Happy to second, agree with everything that Sarah has said, and I can't think of anybody better to replace me as leader, deputy leader. Ooh, Freudian slip.
Thank you. Do you have any other nominations? Okay, so I believe the format of this, Misha, is that we'll take the vote on the first one. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to take a named vote on. Firstly, we'll take the vote for the first nomination for Councillor Owenson, and then I'll move on to the named vote for Councillor Watley. I'll call your name out if you can indicate for, against, abstain. So for the nomination for Councillor Owenson as Deputy Leader, Councillor Allen.
Against.
Councillor Bennett.
For.
Councillor Bruton.
Against.
Councillor Chan.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Pam Cumming.
For.
Councillor Paul Cumming.
For.
Councillor Driscoll.
Against.
Councillor Gallagher.
For.
Councillor Godwin.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Jones-Williams. Councillor McVeigh. Councillor Mead. Councillor Michael. Councillor Mills.
For.
Councillor Nielsen. Councillor Owenson.
For.
Councillor Palmer. Councillor Rain.
Against.
Councillor Rouse.
Against.
Councillor Fran Victory. Councillor Malcolm Victory. Councillor Walton.
For.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Councillor Kathy Wells. Councillor Tom Wells. Councillor Watley.
Against.
Councillor Wilde. Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Wood. Right, now I will ask for votes for the nomination of Councillor Peter Watley. Again, if you can indicate for, against or abstaining. Councillor Allen.
For.
Councillor Bennett.
Against.
Councillor Bruton. Councillor Chan. Councillor Clark. Councillor Pam Cumming.
Against.
Councillor Paul Cumming.
Against.
Councillor Driscoll. Councillor John Gallagher.
Against.
Councillor Godwin.
Against.
Councillor Harrison.
Against.
Councillor Jones-Williams. Councillor McVeigh.
For.
Councillor Mead. Councillor Michael. Councillor Mills.
Against.
Councillor Nielsen. Councillor Owenson. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Rain.
For.
Councillor Rouse.
For.
Councillor Fran Victory. Councillor Malcolm Victory. Councillor Walton.
Against.
Councillor Watkins.
Against.
Councillor Kathy Wells. Councillor Tom Wells. Councillor Watley. Councillor Wilde. Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Wood. So, Chair, the vote for Councillor Owenson was 14 against, 17 for, and the vote for Councillor Watley was 17 against and 14 for. So Councillor Owenson is elected Deputy Leader.
Thank you. Congratulations. So we move on to public participation, agenda item 5. We have 2 people, one of whom I don't know by appearance. Do you have Gareth Jones in the building? Oh, sorry, Gareth. You okay? Do you want to just make your way? Oh, you can move that to.
Oh, yeah, if you want to.
Move your way over to here, Gareth. Sorry. Thank you, Gareth. So you've got 5 minutes just to address us. Oh, sorry, just give us 1 second before we start. Okay. You okay? Just a technical hiccup. Thank you, Gareth. Good to go.
Families. We'd like to ask Malvern Hills District Council what progress has been made with regard to rectifying the oversight of not making provision for accessible play equipment in the Priory Park play area, which has now been in operation for 2.5 years. Despite previous meetings with Tom Wells, leader of the council, parents and organisations which have expressed concern regarding this oversight, the lack of provision still remains. A provision for accessible play equipment was included in the original proposal, which was further supported by consultation during the planning period with parents who have children requiring specific needs, and it's good to see some of them here tonight. We were advised subsequently by Tom Wells that Malvern Hills District Council had received legal advice suggesting that provision of accessible play equipment would entice people with disabilities into the park, potentially leaving the council open to litigation. Without the provision of at least some accessible equipment, then the play area within Priory Park cannot be recognised as fully inclusive, contrary to the Equality Act. The Equality Act requires reasonable provision to be made for equal opportunities for disabled people, and this applies to places where children play. It is illegal to treat people with disabilities any less favourably than people without disabilities. What progress has been made?
Thank you, Gareth. Does that conclude your...
Yep.
Thank you. So thank you. We've noted your comments, and we will be providing you with a written response within 5 working days to everything that you've asked.
Okay.
Thank you, Gareth. Do we also have... I'm not sure that we do. I can't see in my eyesight. It's not great. Dan Boatwright in the room. That's the second.
I think he was being delayed, and if he wasn't delayed by the first thing that he was involved in, he certainly would have been by the one that I was. So
Okay.
I don't think he'd be able to attend. Okay, there's been car accidents outside.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for that. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 6, election of leader of the council. Obviously, this agenda item comes about through the stepping down of Councillor Tom Wells. I'd like to put on record, if we could, thank you to Tom for his hard work. I know that I personally really enjoyed working with Tom, and obviously ashamed that he did step down. Well, it is a shame that he stepped down. Can we have nominations for leader of the council? Jeremy?
I'd like to nominate John Gallagher. After Tom stood down, lots of people were ringing me up and giving me lots of different stories. So I decided to ring John, and I want to make the point, I reached out to him, he didn't reach out to me, and say, you know, what's going on. John spoke to me honestly and openly about what he thought was wrong and what we could do differently to make things right. He's as frustrated as I am that after 2 years in a new council, we've very little to show for it. He wants to make sure that the remainder of the council term is used to deliver for our residents. He doesn't want to use Malvern as a platform for national politics. He doesn't want to use his role to boost his own ego. He wants to work for the local residents, and I and the Conservative group support him on this. I similarly haven't stood for county council. I joined the council to do things locally for local people, and that's what I'd like us to concentrate on for the next 2.5 years. I like John's ideas, I like his honesty, and I particularly like his integrity. I therefore nominate John Gallagher for leader of Malvern Hills District Council.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second John's nomination. I think we all know John in this room. We've seen him as an active member, committed to his residents and resources portfolio holder over the last few years. However, I think there's a lot more to John than meets the eye of the casual observer. He is, for example, an award-winning scientist who worked for 26 years at what we knew as RSRE, but now known as Kinetic, gaining recognition through the John Benjamin Memorial Prize for his work in electromagnetic theory. He subsequently took on managerial roles, introducing a radar scattering tool used for assessing wind turbines, vital in producing renewable energy, and these enabled a safety assessment through a picture of the impact of these turbines made on air traffic and shipping environments. He's typically modest and retiring. Few of you will know of his exploits as a pilot flying small private planes over many years, and perhaps he might even fly Barbara next time she thinks of doing a wing walk. He is musical too, teaching classical guitar to local students also for many years. Although from Glasgow originally, and will not hold that against him, he graduated from Glasgow University, completing his degree and PhD at this university before settling in Malvern, where he's lived for the past 45 years. He tells me it's very much his home now, and it's certainly where his and our hearts all are. Putting this scientist's mind to the services of our residents will be our request for John as his primary focus during his term as leader. I'm very pleased to second this nomination. Thank you.
No? Okay. Take the vote now.
So all those in favour of the nomination of John Gallagher as council leader, can you raise your card now, please? Okay, and all those against? So that vote is carried 17 for and 14 against.
Thank you. Congratulations, John, leader of the council. And that brings me quickly on to leaders' question time, agenda item number 7. And the first question is from Councillor Martin Allen.
Yes, thank you. Good evening again, council. Does the leader agree with me that our residents have a right to know which councillor or councillors represent them in their ward, and which party, if any, that relevant councillor is a member of or affiliated to?
John?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. The residents already know this information because all the councillors put that information, make it publicly available. So it's already something that actually takes place. I think all councillors are there to serve their constituents in an open and transparent way. And I think the Nolan principles were mentioned earlier. The openness and transparency is actually integral to how the councillors interact with their constituents and with their residents. So the answer is yes.
Thank you. Supplementary question, Martin?
Yes, I do, thank you. That's interesting. Obviously, people were aware when they voted for these people, but some might have moved their affiliation. But anyway, thank you for your answer. If you're not already a member of a political party or affiliated to one, If you ever did decide to become so, would you immediately tell your residents and this council, and would you proudly wear the rosette of your chosen party?
Yeah, I have no intention of joining any political party, so that matter doesn't arise.
Thank you, John. The second question, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the new leaders set out what they seek to achieve or what they will achieve in their first 100 days?
John?
Yeah, I would say it's not possible to say what we will be able to do, but there are certain things which we will focus on, and I'm looking forward to over the next 6 months, because we come up to the period at the end of the AGM. The 100 days, I guess, is 3 months. So I look forward to getting stuck in and immediately working with all partners, and we'll be dependent on partners and the results that we actually produce together. So that is yet to be worked out.
Thank you, John. A supplementary question, Sarah?
Yeah. With devolution being a really key topic at the moment, and Worcestershire not really having been aligned with any geographical area yet, and it is one of the key things that we need to be looking at, what are we going to do, where are we going to go? Where does the leader see us aligning with geographically, which area?
John, do you have an answer to that?
Well, at the moment, I'm actually open, got an open view on that, and it's something that I think we need to have a close look at. So I've got no particular views to one side or the other on that one.
Thank you, John. And the third question from Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Could the new leader outline what he intends to do concerning the impact of the Labour government's budget on our local farmers, our local economy, and MHDC's policies for countryside stewardship?
Thank you, Peter. John?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. This is actually something I've been thinking about long before, quite a bit before this council meeting over the last few weeks. It's something that occurred to me. I think we have to have a close look at the impact of the Labour government's budget on local farmers. I think we have to look to see how we can reach out and see what the needs are and how we can best support them. So that will be one of the very first things we'll be having a look at after this council meeting and going on from that.
Thank you, John. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask the leader whether he's personally inclined to support the Labour government's policies on this matter or be against them?
I think it's an interesting question. I think the answer is complex, and I would say that there are things that the Labour government are trying to do that are correct, but one can argue with the way it's been implemented, and I think there's an issue on thresholds, so I think we will have to have a look at that and see what the real impact is in the rural environment and the rural economy.
Thank you, John. Thank you for that. On to agenda item 8, and I'm afraid, John, it's back to you. Medium-term financial plan. Could I invite you to move the recommendations in the report?
Okay, this is to review and recommend to Council that Council approve this updated medium-term financial plan for the 5 years up to 2930. The background to it is it's actually a framework for revenue and capital spending decisions which we update annually, and it's going to provide the basis for the business plan and any detailed budget for the coming year 25-26. So I would say that the philosophy behind the medium-term financial plan is the maintenance of financial stability, that we have reserves that are appropriate to the risk environment in which we're operating in, and the resulting government fair funding review will impact that, and government borrowing, inflation, all these matters that will impact the plan going forward. I think where we have to have a look at is the ongoing savings must be identified through the business plan, and we'll have to have a close look at where we can actually save and keep the budget on track. On the revenue budget assumptions, we want a balanced budget We're looking for no long-term uses of balances to meet any recurring baseline spending. And that actually implies that the general fund balances should be at least £3 million. The savings can come from efficiencies, budget reductions or an income increase, but savings that we have identified savings in the plan, as you can see. And those savings have to be either through efficiencies, budget reductions or an income increase so that we can make up the shortfalls. The council tax increase, we need to keep that as low as possible, and I think that's been something year on year that we've actually, everybody signed up to that. So that is an ongoing assumption that the council tax increases will be kept as low as possible. The capital reserves will be maintained at a level to avoid the need to borrow. So I'm particularly keen on not borrowing money because you actually have to pay interest on that and it will be a drain. So we aim to be debt-free and it's a prudent approach. The revenue budget increases. We've got housing stock growth, which will increase refuse costs, and therefore you will notice that there's a 200k in additional cost to cover this increased workload that will be coming through. The interest rates, I think over this coming period, although they've been held up, and there's, I think I've said before, it's high. The interest rates have held up, it's been higher for longer, so there's been a lot of talk of the interest rates coming back down. So, but I think over the next period, we can anticipate that there will be some weakening of those interest rates, and that means the income from interest will actually drop down to some sort of lower level. And we've made certain assumptions about what that level is. On the capital replacement reserve, we will continue to put 400,000 per year in to avoid, so that we build up over a period of time the replenishment of capital. So we want to avoid borrowing by doing that, thinking well in advance about our future capital replacements. If there is any unexpected extra spend that comes through beyond what we've anticipated, we will need to find extra savings to cover that. But at the moment, that would be unexpected. We don't know what that would be. So that's just a warning shot, if you like, in case that happens. The total cost of the net budget increase is going from 9.93 million to, by the end of the 5-year period, just to over £10 million. The cumulative efficiencies and budget savings, there will be a significant efficiency and budget savings to be made year on year. And if you look at table 3, you will see that by the year 2930, that amounts to a savings of £1 million. And this will be identified through the business plan. Now, I think last year when we went through this, this figure was £1.5 million. So in actual fact, what we've done over this current year is have an improvement on that. And so I would say that the figures in the medium-term financial plan are very positive. We've actually made good inroads in the planning process. I think the other issues associated with that are, we mentioned the council tax increases. We make the assumption that we will assume a £5 increase for the period going forward. That's in the figures, as you'll be able to see. And any ongoing cuts have shifted the burden. I think over this last 10 years, I think it was 10 years ago, we had 40% of funding came into that budget from the Malvern Hills District Council. The cuts now at the end of this period of government funding coming into Malvern Hills District Council will be 73%. So from 40% about a decade ago, the ongoing cuts will be much, much greater. So this is something that's actually factored into the plan. I think if there's anybody got any more questions or detail on that.
Thank you, John. Thanks for moving that report. Do we get a seconder? Council to second that report? Thank you. I'd like to invite members to debate. If we've got any questions, they can be dealt with, obviously, by John. We've also got Andy Baldwin here as well this evening. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the officers for preparing such an excellent report. It's thorough as always, but the devil is in the details. Also, congratulations to Mr. Baldwin's team for reducing that 1.5 million target to 1 million, which is almost, well, it's more than entirely due to extra interest, which is 600k over the past year. Good stuff. Let's hope that they can continue in like vein. There is, of course, still that million to be done, and I noticed coincidentally that we introduced a principle earlier this year that earmarked reserves that don't have positive things which are going to be used against them, those reserves should come back into the general reserves. And I'm looking specifically at the £1 million for infrastructure projects. Perhaps the portfolio holder could inform us which infrastructure projects are likely to be undertaken in the next 12-month period.
Thank you, Peter. John?
Yeah, we will, because we're now moving into a new administration, I think I would like to have a discussion within that administration about what those priorities would be.
Sorry, Chair, does that mean we don't have any at the moment?
Peter, you had that question. John, do you want to answer?
I didn't pick that up.
Peter, do you want to repeat your question?
Yes, sorry, I merely asked if it needs consideration now going forward. Do we not have any at present? He has been portfolio holder for 18 months or so.
John?
Well, I'll just repeat what I've already said. We're coming into a new administration, and I will actually work in a collegiate manner within that administration to see how we move forward.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
Would the portfolio holder consider allocating that to Tenbury to build a new wall following the floods at the weekend?
Good idea.
Thank you. John, a reply?
I will certainly look at all aspects that need to be done with regard to flooding, and that is going to be actually a major issue for us moving forward.
Tom?
Chairman, thank you. John, you've been portfolio holder for finance and resources for a while now, and now in your new exalted role, you've just mentioned that it's your intention to keep council tax down as low as you possibly can. So, if that's the case, when we're looking at our medium-term financial plan, ought we not to be predicating that into that formula? Because at the moment, of course, as you well know, the formula says that it's going to be the highest it possibly can, which equates to £5 a year for a bandy household. So, whilst you're saying it should be lower, in actual fact, what you've got is the highest it can be. So, which is the case?
Thank you, Tom. Do you want to take that, John?
Yeah, so actually I don't recognise that as a fact. I think in actual fact it's kept as low as possible. The maximum in fact last year, if you are aware, which I'm sure you are, we actually were the lowest increase in council tax in the area. So we had county council and the parish councils had much greater increases. So I think we're actually at the bottom of that list of precept payers.
Tom,
Chairman, that really wasn't the question, was it? It was a good attempt. Forget what the parish councils and the county council and the police and everybody else charges. The question I was asking you, John, is that our medium-term financial plan, going forward, as it has in the past, is predicated on the highest amount we can precept the people we serve, £5. Is that not the case? And my question is, having heard what you just said about reducing council tax in the future as a priority for you, I'm wondering how that sits with the integrity of your financial plan.
Well, I think if you have a look at the numbers, it actually stacks up, so I don't think there's an issue there.
Any other questions or comments to John or to Andy? Natalie, thank you.
Thank you. Peter began by thanking the efforts of our excellent officers, and I would like to reiterate that. Because of them, we are in a far better financial position than the majority of upper and lower tier authorities nationally. It's certainly true to say that we've got a robust track record for the achievement of savings, but we all know that over the next few years, we're going to have to make significant savings, and we understand that this will be extremely challenging. So I have a question around paragraph 7.3 in the paper. How does the portfolio holder feel about government plans to move funding away from district councils to fund social care, which in Worcestershire is a county council function, and what impact will that have on Malvern Hills District Council?
Thank you, Natalie. John?
Yeah, on that particular item, I think there is an expectation, there has been for some time, that social care will be addressed in a way that takes funding away. And we have anticipated that within the overall figures within the budget or the medium-term financial plan. What will actually be announced, I think, comes through in December as to possibly what that impact might be for the coming year, certainly. And then that will be reflected in the business plan. But it's something I think we can anticipate will happen. Whether it's next year or the year after, I think there will be I expect they will be tackling the issue of social care.
Just quickly to come back on that, I couldn't see the detail of any adjustments in the papers in front of us. Could you point us to the paragraph that's included in, please?
John, do you want to reply to that?
Sorry, I thought I answered the question as to adequately.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments either for Andy or John? Sarah?
Yeah, it's just on 6.4. It says about maximising income sources. Now, I know I've raised it before about, you know, we just stick £200,000 in, cut and paste, we're going to make those savings. But, and like you say, you have been portfolio holder now for 18 months. What areas are you going to be looking at to maximise the income? Is it car park charges, green waste, weddings? Can't think of any others. Do we do any others? Commercial waste. Oh, and commercial waste, because those are the only ones at the moment. So I just wondered what you thought going forward were going to be your main areas to maximise that income.
Thank you, Sarah. John?
Okay. Yeah, we've already addressed the car parking charges. I think the weddings thing is something we said we would have a look at it at one point, which we haven't really done. So that's something I guess we'll do in the future. And I think that there are a number of areas where we actually need to save money, but the different approach is what efficiencies we can have. There could be a reduction in services, which would save money, and there could be an increase in income from any of those areas that you've just mentioned.
Just to follow up on what service areas were you thinking of reducing? Because that's not
you've
something...
mentioned weddings, you've mentioned car parks. I said we've done that. And there is the commercial waste and the waste side of things, and these are possible areas of income generation. We haven't made our mind up, we will have a look at it.
Thank you, John.
Sorry, no, what I asked was what service areas, because you said you might look at reducing service areas. So that's opposite to income generation. Those are service areas of what we do for our residents.
So I'm not sure if there's confusion here between the question and the first answer, but just in regards to your answer, John, was it about cutting specific services or was it about increasing the services that we provide in terms of commercial waste and things like that?
I think it's maintaining the services as best we can within the budget that we've got.
Thank you. Tom, did you want to?
Chairman, I mean, listening to our leader, I mean, it will spawn so many questions, doesn't it? I mean, John, you just said that you were interested in creating efficiencies. Well, who wouldn't? But then in the next sentence, you said, and by reducing services. That's not an efficiency. That's a service reduction.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure whether John misheard in that case, but John, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, no, well, I'm itemising where you can actually save and budget. You have a choice to make, and choices need to be investigated. I'm not saying one thing or another. What I'm saying is all this needs to be looked at in the round. It's not, so don't pick up the wrong end of the stick and run with it, because you have to look at all the options.
Thank you. I think we've had enough time to debate that. So could we take a vote on the report that Councillor Gallagher has moved? Thank you.
All those in favour of the recommendations set out in the report? All those against? And all those abstaining? that vote.
Thank you to everybody who took part in that. Agenda item 9, appointments to committees and outside bodies. Obviously, with the changes this evening, we have to go through. I think it's the third time this year we've gone through this, so we should be well versed in it now. Could I come to John Gallagher to move the recommendations in the report? Thank you.
Could I ask if we are looking at the change of executive from the current level to?
So there are 3 recommendations in the report, aren't there? If you want to table the 3 recommendations, then we can take them each in turn, if that's okay, John.
The recommendation is to move from an executive of 10.
That is not the recommendation. There's 3 recommendations in the report. There's one about the political balance numbers, there's one about making the appointments, and there's one about delegating the appointments that are not made. So no, there isn't a recommendation about changing the number. That's something that has to be proposed as an amendment if that's what you want to take forward.
Is that okay?
So I'm not sure I fully understand that. The political balance is the balance on the executive. Is that what you're actually saying?
Nisha, do you want to take that? Nisha, do you want to just quickly advise on that?
Yep.
I don't think
So
we need to
the report sets out the options for the continuing as we are with an executive of 10 and political balance numbers for that, and moving to an executive of 11 with the political balance numbers for that. And it was our understanding that there was going to be a proposal to make an amendment to change the executive.
So just to clarify.
Jeremy?
Recommendation 1 says the council confirms the number of seats on each committee requiring particular balance as set out in table 1 attached. Okay? So what you're suggesting is that we make a proposal to amend that to say table 1 based on exec of 11. That's it.
Thank you. All fine. John, back to you.
So, okay, on the basis of the table 1, I propose on the executive committee that we have the listed names of chairman as J. Gallagher and the vice chairman of J. Owenson, with the names of the nominations as laid out behind that.
So should we take each?
Yeah, we'll take each one in turn.
Each one in turn. So firstly, you're proposing the tables with the numbers set out based on an executive of 11. So moving the current arrangements with an executive of 10 to an executive of 11, and then the political balance numbers as set out. That's the first part of the recommendation. Is that what you're moving, Councillor Gallagher?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to vote on council confirms the number of seats on each committee requiring political balances set out in table 1 attached.
Based on the executive.
Based on executive 11, yeah, exactly that.
So does that have a seconder?
Yeah, does that have a seconder, Jeremy? Thank you. I'm going to take a vote on that one first.
Chairman, can I ask a question of the leader in relation to the proposal he's just presented to us?
Of course.
And could he just perhaps share with us the rationale behind going to 11 rather than 10? Perhaps he could explain to us the rationale behind that. And if we do go to 11, could he explain to me the rationale upon which he decided that the Conservatives would have a majority number of portfolios to his dig group?
Thank you, Tom. That's a fair question. John, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I think the reason for going to 11 is that if we didn't go to 11, if we remained at 10, the political balance would result in 4 portfolio holders, and the workload for 4 portfolio holders, I think, would be quite significant. So I am concerned about actual the distribution of that workload, and I would prefer to do it to a greater number than the 4. And if we move to 11, we will have that greater number. We'll have 5 portfolio holders. The workload, therefore, will be less onerous, and we are more likely to be successful in the delivery of that.
Thank you. Before we go to the vote, I'm just going to go to one more. I'll come back to that in a second, Tom. Just one more question, then we will go to the vote. Sarah.
Yeah, it's just to pick up on the point of 4 portfolio holders. Actually, you can appoint up to 6. So I know that I've turned down a portfolio position, and I know that Councillor Watley turned down a portfolio position, but I'm not sure that anyone on the Green or Gaia group has been offered a portfolio. So actually, if you are looking to create a collegiate council, you don't have to have 4 or 5 portfolios. You can have up to 6, and you could bring everyone together. I have done 2 peer challenges in the south of England, in South Hams, and I can't remember the other one, it's one of the Devons, where they have everyone all on the cabinet. So actually that, I understand what you're doing, but you are very clearly saying you won't work with everyone. You will only work with the Conservatives or DIG. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. I was going to answer the question on why 3 and 2. To get political balance, you have to have balance across the committees. So what we've agreed is the Conservatives have 3 on the exec. ONS has 3 from the DIG group. So it's just to achieve political balance. There's nothing mysterious or alternative in there. The purpose is to work in a collegiate way. To work with people who are going to put the local district first rather than put party politics first. And that's what the Conservatives and the DIG group have agreed to do. So that's why we're proposing the change. In terms of cost to the council, it's no additional cost to go to 11. And in fact, it's probably going to be a saving because we're going to drop to 5 portfolio holders. I'd be delighted if one of the members of the opposition wished to join us in leading the council, but the voting that we had there was very, very down party lines. But the offer is open. If anyone who isn't currently part of the new administration wishes to participate in the new administration, feel free to put your hand up. You will be welcomed with open arms.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's go to the vote on this. So it's on recommendation 1.
So on recommendation 2.1, with the change for the current makeup of exec going from 10 to 11, and this is just for the numbers for making up political balance. All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining? So, Chair.
That's carried. Thank you.
No, yeah, that's but just to make clear, I know that some I've had some questions around political balance, and what the numbers that we've set out in the table meet the requirements of political balance. We're not, and unless the appointments made further down the line step outside that requirement, we might have to come back, because if we step outside the requirements of political balance, then we have to have nobody vote against it. But as it stands, the numbers only that are set out there do meet those requirements.
Thank you. Can I come back to you, John, again for recommendation 2.2, which the council makes appointments to committees, panels and outside bodies as identified in tables 1 and 2. Do you want to go through?
So I understand we actually are voting, we're proposing on each individual committee, is that correct?
Yep. So where there's agreement or no dissent, those are all in the information you've got in front of you. They're all in the black typeface. all the ones where there's more than one nomination are in red. In view of the votes that we've just taken earlier, the appointments to leader and deputy leader have already been made, and the leader is automatically the chairman of executive, and the deputy leader is automatically the vice chairman of executive. So that can be taken as read, and then I think we will need to go through all the other items that are highlighted in red and vote on them individually.
Just a point of order. So can we make a proposal on which names we would like out of those that are red and pass as one item? So we would like to make a proposal that the first red name on each of the boxes, so overview and scrutiny is Councillor Bennett, trying to go down so many names, policy development panel Cynthia Palmer, for economy Cynthia Palmer. No, I'm making a proposal.
I think it can be a proposal, yeah.
So environment Leslie Bruton. Have I missed any? Policy communities and housing Andrew Wilmot. Is that all of the ones that are in red?
Just a point of clarification, Leslie's not on the environment panel, so she can't be chair.
Okay.
Do you mind, Jeremy, if we do take it line by line? Just in the
No,
sense
no,
of
I'm happy to put
it's
another
going to be
name in
clearer, I think, for everybody that way.
So for the environment panel, we'll put John Michael in as chair.
Okay, let's take it line by line then. So, overview and scrutiny committee. Do we have any? So I'm asking for proposals.
No, so I am making a proposal for ONS, Paul Bennett as one.
Let's do it line by line. So let's just do ONS first. That's the first one where we've got two reds, isn't it? So you've got a proposal for
Paul Bennett.
Does Paul find a seconder? Thank you, John. Sorry, do you have any other nominations? Natalie?
Yeah, I'd not like to nominate Councillor Sarah Rouse, please.
Thank you. And does that find a seconder? Tom, thank you.
Chairman, can I just talk to that very briefly?
Yes.
To that seconding. Chairman, whilst it's not included in our constitution, customer practice has dictated in recent years with enlightened administrations that we have a genuinely independent person who is not in any shape or form connected with any administration in this position. For that reason, simply that we don't mark our own homework. Now, I have got no reason specifically to suggest Councillor Bennett doesn't fall into that category, though so far this evening his voting patterns suggest otherwise.
Thank you, Tom. So we're going to take a vote on both
Excuse me, can I come back on that?
You were mentioned, Paul, actually. So
Yes, thank you.
Very quickly.
Yes. Voting in the way that we have doesn't mean that we're actually part of the administration. Yes, but that wouldn't be the reason why it would be impossible for me to be chair of ONS. I seem to remember that during your situation, there was a Conservative, and during Sarah's term, there was a Conservative. So, basically, we're not part of the administration, and we're not going to be. And your inference was quite wrong.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, I'll move to the vote. Okay, can we do the vote on? Oh, do you not second? Sorry, Nat. No, Tom did. Sorry, Tom did. Yeah, he did. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Nat.
Are there any other nominations?
I have asked for the nominations. There hasn't been any other nominations.
Okay.
Thank you, Misha.
We'll take the vote first for all those in favour of Councillor Bennett. All those against? Right, all those in favour of Councillor Rouse? And all those against? So, Chair, that's 17 votes for Councillor Bennett and 14 against, and 14 votes for Councillor Rouse and 17 against. So that is Paul Bennett is elected as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny.
Thank you. So the next one we're going to be voting on is under Table 2, which is Policy Development Panel, Communities and Housing. Is that correct? Make sure I'm doing the right thing. Do you have any nominations for this, John?
Yeah, I nominate Andrew Wilmot as chair.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder, Jeremy? Do you have any other nominations, Sarah?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Leslie Bruton. For us, nothing's really changed at this council since when we all voted last May. Well, except I wasn't here, I was on holiday. But and then everyone was happy enough to vote in Leslie as chair of the communities panel. Nothing's changed for us. We're still doing what we were doing as MHI, and so I feel that she's an excellent chair of the communities panel. She's just spent her weekend in Tenbury, probably up to her neck in floodwaters, doing what she does incredibly well for Tenbury and looking after everyone, and really working for her communities. So I think it's a real shame that you want to remove her from something she's worked really hard at and been amazing at. So I'm going to propose her anyway, just because I think she's amazing.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder? I'm spoiled for choice, Natalie.
More than happy to second. Sarah's right. Nobody works harder in Tenbury than Leslie does. I've been with her clearing up in the past from the devastating floods. She's chaired this committee excellently during the time that I've been portfolio holder, and she should be allowed to continue in this role.
Thank you. Do you have any more nominations? Okay, just the two. We'll take the votes now. Thank you, Misha.
So all those in favour of Councillor Wilmot, can you raise your cards? And all those against? And all those in favour of Councillor Bruton? And all those against?
Not part of the administration.
Okay, Chair, that vote is won by Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you. Sorry. So, moving on, the next one is another policy development panel, and it's for economy and tourism. Do we have a nomination, John?
Yeah, for economy and tourism, I propose Cynthia Palmer as chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, Jeremy? Do you have any other nominations? Natalie?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Martin Allen, who currently sits in that role and has done a fantastic job for every town and area in this district.
Thank you, Natalie. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Okay, so have we got any more nominations? Okay, take a vote on those. Thank you, Misha.
So all those in favour as Councillor Palmer? And all those against? And all those in favour of Councillor Allen? And all those against? So, Chair, that vote is 17 for Councillor Palmer and 14 against, and 14 for Councillor Allen and 17 against. So that is Councillor Palmer nominated as Chair.
Thank you. That moves us on to Policy Development Panel Environment. Do we have any nominations for this, John?
Yeah, I nominate John Michael as the chair of that panel.
Does that find a seconder, Jeremy? Do you have any other nominations? Thank you, Malcolm.
Mark Driscoll.
Mark Driscoll. Thank you.
I'm going to expedite the process and withdraw.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any other nominations? Sarah Rao?
No, I'm going to withdraw as well, because I actually think Mark Driscoll would be an amazing chair of the environment panel, given he knows everything there is to know about the environment. But actually, it's getting a bit boring now.
Thank you. So we've got one nomination.
Yeah. Councillor Michael. And everyone against? Anyone abstaining? Okay, that's carried for Councillor Michael.
So the next one is...
Yeah.
So that's JAP, isn't it? Okay, so the next one is the South Worcestershire Development Plan Joint Advisory Panel. How many people do we have on this? It's 5, isn't it? 5 seats, isn't there? So we're looking for...
No, but,
Sorry, Misha, jump
the
in.
terms of reference for JAP are clear that the 5 seats are for the portfolio holder for planning, the chairs of Northern Area and Southern Area Planning Committee, and then 1 member from each the North and South Planning Committees. So the ones in red...
Actually, it's only 2, because one's from the north and 2 are from the south. I actually thought, but I'm not constitutional. It used to be that the planning committees voted for their own representative. I'm not sure whether that ever changed, but that's how we used to do it. Is that north and south area used to vote for their own representative on JAP.
Misha?
We can do it now, or it can come under 2.3 because it is in the table 2 as a delegation, which we can then do via the planning committees with approval from the group leaders.
So we've got only 1 from North anyway, haven't we? That's been listed on your sheet here. So are we proposing that we just do it now? Yeah. Okay, do we have any, so 1 from the North, 1 from the South. Do we have any proposers for either of those? Should we do the North first? Let's do the North first, keep it simple.
The North is, I propose Barbara Jones-Williams.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Jeremy. Do you have any other proposals for people in Northern Area Planning for JAP? Any nominations? No. Should we take a vote on that?
Yeah. Everyone in favour of Councillor Barbara Jones-Williams? And everybody against? And anybody abstaining?
Thank you. So that's carried for Barbara. In terms of the Southern Area Planning, then representative on the Joint Advisory Panel, do we have any nominations? John?
Yeah, I propose Jenny Watkins.
Thank you, John. Does that find a seconder, Jeremy? Do we have any other nominations? Any other nominations? No. Okay, let's take that to a vote. Misha?
Everybody in favour of Councillor Watkins? Okay, and everybody against? And everyone abstaining? That's carried, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That covers everything. Agenda item 10, forward plan, as always for noting only. Item 11, notice of motion. I'd like to invite Councillor Allen to move the notice of motion.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Council. It's been a very interesting meeting so far. This shouldn't be very contentious, by the way. I would hope not, anyway. Winter fuel allowance. I'll read the motion first, if I may. This council requests that the chairman send to His Majesty's Labour government this council's heartfelt concerns about the withdrawal of the pensioners' winter fuel allowance to the many struggling pensioners who reside within the Malvern Hills district. Too many pensioners will no longer qualify and will be forced to make a choice between eating and heating. This council calls upon the government to revisit their decision and adjust the threshold upwards so that these pensioners with a yearly income of less than £16,000 per annum would be included. Now, this is a very simple request, made even more urgent with Ofgem's indication of yet more price increases to come next year. As I said, I don't believe it's a contentious matter. We all represent pensioners. I can't see why any of us would abstain or vote against this worthy motion. After all, I'm not aware of any councillor sitting for the Labour Party within this council because they might have a problem voting for it, as they've had in county. On the 19th of this month, the Department of Works and Pension admitted that this winter an additional 50,000 pensioners would be pushed into poverty. On top of that, the DWP then announced that an extra 100,000 pensioners would be in the same position by 2027. That's 150,000 pensioners punished for not being a working person. These are proud people. Many have worked all their lives from the age of 15 or 16, paying their taxes, supporting others. Some now have to rely on food banks, such as the one in Upton, which I support and do everything I can to help. And also there's others in Malvern, and I believe there's one in Tenbury Wells, but I could be corrected there. I will listen tonight with great interest to your words, and no doubt will our voters. And I reserve the right to sum up at the end. Thank you.
Oh. Sorry, Paul. I've got to go to Malcolm. Thank you, Malcolm, for that. Okay, so we're going to invite members to debate, up to 3 minutes each. I think that was the philosophy that we'd not here all night then, but I think it's a worthwhile debate. And can I come to Jeremy first, who I believe is proposing an amendment?
I am indeed. I mean, one of the... Actually, I thought when Tom introduced the idea of having motions at the end, I did have a concern that they would turn into showboating and political staging. And what I was hoping was that we could actually create an environment where councillors could bring motions to this council that this council could actually do something with. And with the winter fuel allowance, I think that this council should be looking at what it can do locally to help our pensioners. So I'm actually proposing an amendment to the motion to actually make that point. So I'm suggesting that we preface this with this council requests that the Executive Committee consider what steps this council can take to alleviate winter fuel poverty for affected pensioners based in the district, and that the council send a letter to the government expressing the council's heartfelt concerns about the withdrawal of pensions winter fuel allowance to the many struggling pensioners who reside within Malvern Hills district, and calls on the government to revisit the decision and adjust the threshold upwards so that those pensioners with a yearly income of less than £16,000 per annum can be included. So I think that makes the motion... It makes the point of sending the message to government, but it puts the onus also onto us as individual councillors to look at what this council can do to help alleviate those problems.
Thank you, Jeremy. Does that find a second to the amendment? Thank you, John. Do you want to speak to that, or...? Okay. So we can just return to the debate. We've got an amendment to the original motion. Anybody else wish to talk? Sorry, Paul. I can't see you at the back. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. There's a big John Michael in the way. Basically, I just wanted to support that, but also I don't understand why we don't have a fuel bank as opposed to just a food bank, because food and fuel kind of are just as important to each other. The number of people who I've actually had to literally give my own money to because they haven't had any heating on in their house when I've gone round the ward is very, very sad. And it might be an idea to try and think about some feasible way that we can get to some of the people that don't get pension credit, but also some of the younger people as well who have families who are also struggling as well. This is one of the things that Natalie did, which I praised other occasions, was to make sure that homeless weren't left on the streets, which during the time before the last administration led to deaths in this place of all places. But they could easily happen at home. And, you know, it is something that if we have got some way of doing it, we could make sure that people did get some money, pensioners, and where absolutely necessary, younger people as well. I would 100% support that.
Thank you, Paul. John?
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that concerns me is the amount of people who have lost, will not be getting winter fuel allowance, who could, by virtue of the fact that they've not completed the form, but they would qualify. And I thought that might be one area perhaps that we could help with. And it might be a suggestion that it would make the point that Jeremy has made regarding doing something positive locally. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Sarah?
Thanks. Obviously, I have to caveat this with the fact that I work for the Citizens Advice and the NHS now. So, but at food banks, you can now get energy vouchers. So the things that Paul was saying aren't there, they actually are. And actually, the Citizens Advice, a lot of local agencies, Age UK, there's a huge drive for people to sign up for pension credit. Because if you can get pension credit, you also get a massive amount of other benefits, which are actually going to, or will actually be more probably than the amount you would get in winter fuel allowance. So I think it's a case of there is a lot of support out there. It's about what we don't know. I also get to help at a help centre. So a lot of people will come in there for food vouchers, but you can also give them energy vouchers. There's Act on Energy, do a huge amount of work. So actually there is loads going on there. I do support that this council needs to do more, and it actually could, you know, possibly commit some of its reserves or some of the money we've got towards supporting people. But I think it's about supporting people in the community to do what they're already doing. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. They're all out there doing it. It's about how do we get the funding to those small groups who are cooking meals for people. So one of the things I do if somebody comes to me, I know where they can get a free meal all across Malvern. I know you can get a cup of tea and a biscuit and a bit of cake all across Malvern on every day. So it's about that. It's about funding the people that are already doing things in the community. So that would be my caveat on that. Let's not reinvent anything. It's already happening. It's already out there. There's some amazing people doing some amazing work. People like Martin Lawrence, if you've been a councillor a long time, who does Zest for Life, where you can get him the Malvern Green Spaces. So there is a lot there. All the people running the warm spaces across our district. Suckley has their warm spaces, Tenbury has them. So there's a lot out there. So maybe it is just about, if people don't know what's going on, collating it, bringing it together and seeing where we can put some extra money in.
Thank you, Sarah. So going back to Paul, because I know you were mentioned.
I'm not disagreeing with Sarah. As the stuff is out there, but then again, not everybody goes to food banks. Not everybody is aware of all of this, and it's the publicity that is the crucial factor here. And if we can pull it all together, then we can do a better job than we are at the moment.
Thank you. Sorry, Natalie, and then I'll come to you, Leslie.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to pick up on what Sarah said. She's absolutely right. There is a lot that's going on within our communities and delivered by our third sector partners, including Age UK, who I know that we've worked with very closely to contact people who we think may be eligible for pension tax credits and therefore eligible for winter fuel allowance. So we are doing things. I'm sure there is more that could be done as well, but I think it's not just about food banks, and that's why we do have other places for people to go where perhaps the stigma is less. And one of the last things I did as portfolio holder was to request that our information on cost of living crisis and help available is made more prominent on the website, and I hope to see that within the coming days and weeks.
Thank you. Leslie.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, yes, we do have a food bank in Tenbury, and lots of elderly residents do use the food bank. On average, it's about 150 residents that it supports a week and growing. And again, we run a welcome space. That's mainly elderly people. To get a free cup of tea and a slice of cake, as they say, saves them about £7 because they couldn't afford to go to a cafe to buy that. So, and what we do is also get other agencies in, as Councillor McVeigh says, Age UK, who helps support them get additional funding towards fuel, etc. So, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak to this? John?
Yeah. I think there's another aspect to this which is actually concerning, and I'm aware of people who have got no pension credit because they've actually got savings. They've put money aside for their old age. They have savings which actually excludes them from pension or credit. And following that, if they don't have pension or credit, they don't have a winter fuel allowance. And I know people who are on £8,000 a year pension who have savings and they're eating into their savings just to survive. So there is an issue here for people not on pension or credit who are not eligible for it for their savings reason.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the vote. Just to say that, obviously that was... Sorry, Mike, you did reserve a right. I'll come to you and then I'll go to the vote. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you. That was very interesting. Earlier we talked about everybody working together and it was stressed more than once. And I would say to Jeremy, if you'd come to me prior to this rather than leaving this to the last moment, I'm sure I would have very happily accepted this, and perhaps we could have tweaked it a bit more. So I'd ask you in the future, if I put a motion forward and somebody wants to make an amendment, come and talk to me. I'm quite reasonable. I talked to the Conservatives at the County Council. We've recently managed to get through a motion to give free bus travel to veterans as from the 6th of January on the Worcestershire On Demand. So, you know, I'm quite used to working with other parties, and I think, very successfully get on with them. So I don't think there's any sort of party politics in this sort of motion at all. It is a heartfelt concern I have that a lot of our pensioners are going to suffer. The only thing I take issue with the amendment, I will accept the amendment, is on line 3, where it says, and council send a letter. Well, my understanding, having done this in the county council, that letter should come from the chair, and that is the important part of when we send letters to government. So I'd ask Councillor Owenson, in the spirit of accord, that you agree to that change, that we change this from the word council to the chair of Malvern Hills District Council.
I'm just looking to the chair to say, is that what's normally done, or is that...
A letter from on behalf of the council, if agreed at council, would normally go from the chair with help from officers to put it together.
As long as it's from the chair, I'm quite happy to accept it.
Okay, thank you. Just before I go to vote, just to sort of sum up, because I think there's some really important points there. I think just in regards to not reinventing the wheels and working with organisations that already exist, I think that's the important thing there. Just in terms of the winter fuel allowance in particular, there's a lot of, not necessarily education, but just making people aware of what is available and supporting them. I think, as you said, John, actually, I think that's a really valuable point, to make sure that people are aware of the support that's out there, and there's some great organisations that are already doing that. But we as a district council, I know in the past we've done things like the Poverty Forum and whatnot. I think all that's been really, really useful in the past. So I'm not going to come to you, Dean, because I think we've had...
It's a matter of procedure.
Okay, quickly.
The seconder has to accept it as well before you vote.
Yeah,
We haven't got to that point, but thank you. We'll do the vote, if that's all right, and then... Okay, so we're voting on the amendment, Misha, to be correct, yeah?
Yeah, so we're voting in favour of the amendment. Yeah. No, because Councillor Victory didn't confirm if he accepts it and agrees with Martin accepting the amendment. Okay. So all those in favour of the amendment now becoming this and making it the substantive? All those against?
I'm abstaining on this one.
All those abstaining? Okay, that vote is carried, Chair.
That brings the meeting to a close. Thank you everybody for attending. A safe journey home. Take care.